Hello and welcome back to Dateline New Haven on WNHH-FM. I'm Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make our community tick. Well, the Democracy Fund, the New Haven Democracy Fund, has been making our elections tick for almost 2 decades. And we have in here the two people at the helm. Allison Heimer is the administrator, meaning she runs it day to day, in addition to the other agencies she runs. And Leslie Heffel-McGurk, did I say that right? Mm-hmm. Who's the chair of the board. Welcome, both of you. We're going to do a little check in on how the election just went, and then some ideas you're giving to New Haven about how maybe we can expand democracy in New Haven.
Thank you so much for having us.
All right, I'm going to ask you, Leslie, get real close to the mic so you're almost touching it. So we just went through a mayoral election in which so democracy was funded up. 2007 was approved by the state legislature. It's the first one and still the only in Connecticut.
Still the only one in the state of Connecticut.
And where it gives public money to people running for mayor if they raise enough small contributions from people in town to qualify.
Yes, they have to raise $5,000 from 200 registered voters.
Of at least $5. You said.
Of at least $5 or more.
And then they get $125,000 both in the primary and general election, plus a $25,000 grant that's up to $125,000 to match what they've raised. And the idea was to enable more people to run for office, even if you're not getting money from contractors because you're an incumbent or you're not rich.
Yeah, it's to combat the perception of any kind of, collusion or coercion within our system.
And that enables people to run. But in this last election, the incumbent used it, Justin Elicker running for mayor, but Steve Orozco, the Republican, did not because he didn't want to limit how much money. Because if you get it, you have to limit your contributors to give you $400 instead of $1,000, right?
Correct. That's the maximum you can receive.
And because of one of the worst Supreme Court decisions in political history, second to Citizens United, Buckley Vallejo, we can't force people to participate. So it's an opt-in. Like you could stay out and just be a rich person like Ned Lamont and give your own campaign $25 million, or you can have like a bunch of rich friends and like not abide by the limits, or you could choose to run and then get public money.
So those are some of the options.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in this election, the Democrat Justin Elicker got how much money?
So the fund gave out about $54,000 this year in program funding. So that's between the matching funds and the grant. The grant accounted for $25,000 of that. It was only for the general election. There was no primary this year.
Right, because we had a primary this cycle before that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not as much as I would think he would get because he raised a lot of money. Why did only 125 match? Because it had to be local money?
So we only match 2-to-1 the contributions that come from registered voters in New Haven. And we only match the first $35 2-to-1. So, anybody who gives between $5 and $35, you're going to get a 2-to-1 match. But anybody who gives $35 to $400, we're only giving you $70 for that entire donation.
So if there was $54,000 for Justin Elicker, 25 was the general grant.
Mm-hmm.
So, math. So 29,000 was all that he matched. That's not a lot.
It was the match for about 400 voters. So he
raised a lot of out-of-town money. He raised a lot of bigger contributions, but still.
I would say, if you compare this to previous years, like if you compare this to 2023, we gave out 3 times as much money.
There were more people running.
There were more people running, but there was also a primary and a general.
Mm-hmm.
So typically, in the past couple of elections where Mayor Elicker has run, we've given out money in the primary and also in the general. I think the highest we've given out to his campaign is only about $69,000. Nobody's ever hit the 125.
Interesting.
Maximum. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And it hasn't helped people run. It's given us debate. If you're in the Democracy Fund, you have to go into debate.
Correct.
Which
you have to be part of it.
And it used to be you'd have even back down 2013, 2019, we had a lot of debates. We no longer have a lot of debates. So it's you guys are nothing for the most part.
There's been some community meetings. There's certainly at the, the ward committee level for the primaries. A lot of people consider those, the public forum or debate. And, I think that there is...
That's true. You're pitching for the ward committee to support you.
Right. And a lot of the community management teams also host candidates, and try to bring
So Justin
people
Elicker had unspent money. Did he have to give you money back? How do you decide? Like if he raises a lot of money, because he raised in 6 figures, but he didn't spend it all.
He did spend almost all of it.
Oh, he did spend all of it.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you decide whether the money they spent was Democracy Fund money or not?
So we assume that the first dollars that you spend are our dollars, Democracy Fund dollars. But then you have to give back any overage either to your donors at a prorated amount, or you have to give it back to the fund now. We changed the ordinance to make sure that those were the only two.
What does overage mean?
Anything that you had left in your coffer that you did not spend.
So if Democracy Fund gives you 54 and you spend 120, but you raise 130, do you have to give back that 10?
That 10, you could either give it back to your donors at a prorated rate, or you could give it back to the New Haven Democracy Fund.
So did you get anything back from Elliker?
We have not yet. They haven't finished closing out their books, so we anticipate less than $1,000 back.
And then there was a separate issue. He broke the rules pretty flagrantly. You're not allowed to use, if you get Democracy Fund money, you can't spend campaign money on other campaigns. You can't spend it on an issue campaign. You can't spend it on another candidate's campaign, correct?
You're talking about 2023?
Oh, was that a different Okay, so in 2023, he put out a flyer to change the charter. And it wasn't a gray area like he claimed. It wasn't like in the context of vote for me and by the way, I'm for these positions. It was a flyer only and specifically about support this ballot position for 4-year terms. And it didn't say anything about it and elect me. But it was paid for by him. And I'm trying to remember, I know we talked about it. Did he have to return that money?
No. So that flyer had basically the first side was, I'm voting for the charter revision. I think that was the issue, right? And then on the back, it was some more details about the charter revision. And so that's where it kind of got fuzzy. Because
when he's saying fuzzy? It's only about the charter. It's only about the ballot. It's not about his campaign.
Well, so candidates are allowed to share their positions on things. This was, we never made a ruling on this. Basically, what we decided, what the board decided in a vote was that the money that we had given the campaign was not to be used on this mailer, and they remitted the entire cost of that mailer back to the fund.
But I thought if you get the money, from the public money, you can't spend any of your campaign money. Am I wrong about that? Or is it only the public money you can't spend on that? You're
not supposed to. In any event, even at the state level rules, right? You can't spend money that's raised for a particular candidate on not that candidate. There was
it's not just your public money. You can't spend other money you raise if you're participating in it on other campaigns, correct?
Well, there was a case at the Connecticut Supreme Court with I think it's Representative Sampson, who had written this mailer about very anti. I think it was Lamont at the time,
it was anti another candidate,
but it was a completely different race. It was vote for us at the local level to also combat this thing at the statewide level, and there was an entire case about whether or not that was an appropriate use of CEP funding.
And what did they decide?
They decided that it was a gray area, but that it's not the preferred usage, and they had to give some of the money back.
All right, we're talking to Allie Heimer and Leslie Heffel-McGurk from the Democracy Fund. So overall, how'd you feel the last couple of campaign cycles? Do you feel that it's working well?
I think when people use it, it works really well. The thing that I would really like for us to work harder on is getting candidates who maybe aren't in the fold as much of our regular elections, or not frequent candidates maybe, to actually learn about the fund, see how it could benefit them, and then ideally use it. Because I really do think it helps, especially non-Democrats, essentially, raise enough money to really get their ideas out there.
It does seem like a mayor's race, 150,000 would seem like be enough to run a good mayor's race. What do you think? Because there's always diminishing returns.
That is not the total that you can raise.
Because you're matching what you raise.
That's just what the maximum of what the fund can give out per candidate per cycle. Yeah. So candidates themselves can spend up to $400,000.
Yeah, and I'm just talking about the candidates who don't have that wherewithal.
Right.
If they get to 25 and they raise another 50, or they can get up to 100 with the matching, do you need more than that to run for mayor in New Haven?
I don't think so right now, but I think in years that we have more candidates or a primary and a general, or there are situations in which it could really drag out your money. Depends on how early you start, and
because our idea is we want everyone to be able to run, as long as you have if you have a modicum of support, as long as you have some support and you're a legitimate candidate. Yeah. You want not just the rich people can run, or people with rich friends. If
there are 200 registered New Haven voters who would be willing to put $5 towards your campaign, then I think you should be able to share whatever those ideas are that those people believe in.
So now we're looking ahead. Now you got some ideas for how to change it. Now, if I didn't follow up what happened, you had asked for $60,000 in the current year budget, so you could try out expanding the Democracy Fund to clerk, register voters, citywide people, or perhaps alders. What happened with that?
That was tabled in committee.
Okay.
We did get the ordinance changes that we had requested through, but we did not get the pilot program.
What were the ordinance changes?
It was a number of things. It was closing some of the loopholes that had been used for exploratory committees. It was changing and making explicit some of the rules that had come up for question in the 2023
Is it now
debate.
explicit that if you do something that's obviously not about your campaign for another issue, that's obviously about your campaign?
We basically made it so that so if you use the funding that's not talking about your candidacy, your beliefs, or how to vote for you, that it is, money needs to be returned, that it's potentially a fine. And then we also made it clear that any money that we give you, and you decide to stop running, or you decide not to get ballot access, that we're going to at the very least take the $25,000 grant back. The matching funds are sort of given on a rolling basis, but as soon as you decide that you're not going to pursue the office that you're running for, you no longer qualify for funding.
And am I correct in thinking the exploratory issue had to do with Karen DuBois Walton, that if you're going to do an exploratory committee and then raise bigger contributions than you're allowed to under the Democracy Fund, then when you pivot to a real campaign, you want to be in Democracy Fund, what do you do about that old money you raised from like contractors or
essentially
$1,000?
You can't hold on to it and roll it over into a new campaign. It's considered a different campaign account. So it would be the same as accepting money from a political action group or something like that in the mind of the Democracy Fund.
So when do you decide you're not exploring, but you're running that?
That's up to the candidate. I mean, it's typically in the state rules. I
Finally.
believe it's like a 10-day a buffer time. So if you decide that you're going to announce, you have 10 days to clear out that money, clear out that account, return anything back to donors, or give that money to the state, and then create your new entity.
So now, what kind of expansion are you looking at now? What ideas do you want our listeners and readers of The Independent to consider?
So I think that there's a big open question here. I think that, we want to know what New Haveners want to see. I think the next cycle is going to be a really big cycle. I anticipate it being very competitive because it's the first time we're looking at 4-year terms. And so, from a strength of the democracy of the city perspective, we really want to make sure that as many voices as possible are part of that discussion, and that we're giving voters an option to hear what those people who are going to be their leadership for 4 years have to say, even if they're not contested. Maybe we need to make sure that that we know what those people stand for, and that we have the opportunity for all of the candidates who are interested in mayor, in alder, in board of ed, in city clerk. We want to make sure that they have opportunity to participate in a debate if they have a challenger. And we want to make sure that they have an opportunity to, at the very least, put a piece of mail out with their ideas out to every single voter in their district.
So what would that mean in specific? We already have mayoral.
Right. So
and,
what
and we're actually going to spend a little less unless it gets twice as competitive, because we're going to have 4 years to do, but it could get twice competitive.
Yeah, I mean, it could get twice as competitive. The most competitive one that we've seen, recently, I would say, is 2021, where we did have a primary. Although 2023 was very competitive as well. We gave out $150,000.
We never went through with the primary in 2021, right? Karen DuBois
That's correct. But then there was also a general with John Carlson. It was the first time that the Republican Party had actually used the program. We had 100% adoption that year, and I think it made our democracy stronger because certainly
that was a great debate.
I think New Haveners were really paying attention.
I do too.
So
what do you want to do now? Now you give me the vision of how you want to make sure with 4-year terms that there's more engagement and more accountability and more opportunity. What does that mean? Hard facts.
Let's talk about what the Democracy Fund actually requires of candidates, right? We want you to file your paperwork on time and be transparent about the money that you're getting, who it's from, and what it's being spent on. Okay, I think that that's incredibly important because there is a perception, even if it's not a reality, that there's shadow money coming into our elections in New Haven. And we want to make sure that people have confidence in where their leadership is being funded. And I think that they'd be surprised to learn that it's mostly from the community. The second thing is that it would make it so that candidates would limit the amount of money that they're giving themselves. They wouldn't be able to, bankroll $10,000, $50,000 into their own campaign if they so choose. You would really be limited in that, self-funding.
So are there specific proposals that you're looking at?
Yes. So we put together a Democracy Fund pledge option or a grant option. So any candidate who would be running for office could take the pledge, which basically said they were going to abide by all of the rules, but they could optionally choose not to take funding if they believed that, they didn't want to spend taxpayer dollars in that way. The other option...
I'm confused by that. There are the rules you have to.
You would follow the rules. You would basically take a pledge that you were going to follow the rules.
You have to do that now anyway, right?
No.
If you're in the Democracy Fund, you have to follow the rules.
If you're in the Democracy Fund, you have to follow the rules. But this would be an expansion to alders and Board of Ed and other races.
Oh, where it's not... So would they get public money?
No, they would not get public money in that.
So you're not the Democracy Fund seal of approval.
So you're not looking to fund other races, which really all the races don't cost very much. But so you're not looking, because before you talked about...
No, we are. What we're looking for is we're looking for the community to tell us which they'd prefer.
So you're looking for one option in which you're not going to fund other races, but you can do a seal of approval, Democracy Fund seal of approval, where you agree to follow similar rules, and therefore you will get the seal. And you also have a plan B where you'd pay?
Yes, I think that in a contested election, right, where there are multiple candidates who have some modicum of community support, that it does make sense to give out a grant. Now, what that grant actually is, if it's $2,000 or $5,000 or something in that ballpark, to help you reach out to all of the registered voters in your district. And in most aldermanic districts, there's about 2,000, 3,000 registered voters who would come out for, the election. I think that there's a huge benefit to being able to put mail on everybody's door and a door knocker on everybody's door to remind them of when election day is. I think you're going to actually see an increased turnout if you give the local alders the opportunity to do that.
And what about the citywide clerk, register of voters, and Board of Ed?
So for citywide races, we would want to do the $25,000 grant only, not matching funds. And then for the Board of Ed, it would be half of that. So the grant would be $12,500 instead of $25,000.
So just to repeat for everybody, you have two ideas coming into 2026 as we prepare for our 2027, although register voters this year. You want to see us either do a seal of approval, which is really non-controversial, right? And then, or are we going to pony up some money? That's funny. Anything could be controversial.
Anything could be controversial,
including at your meetings. Yeah. And then, or do we put some money behind it with a modest amount for alders? And did you have a dollar figure or no?
I mean, it's up for debate. I think what would probably be most realistic is $5,000.
And then $25K for the citywide clerk and register of voters, and 12.5 for Board of Ed.
And the additional benefit would be the debate portion. We would allow and help fund a venue and an opportunity for anybody who is in a contested election to have a real conversation.
And this is only for
debate.
Contested elections?
Yes. The pledge would be for anyone.
Pledge for anyone, but money would be for contested.
Yeah.
Which we often don't know the last minute. So then you kind of running your campaign not knowing if you have an opponent or not.
I think in a similar way, we do know who's interested well before the election. I think there's a difference between getting on the ballot and running, right?
And then how are you going to present this? Because we're running out of time. Are you going to be formally presenting this to the alders? You're going to hold forums?
It would have to go through the Board of Alders, absolutely. But I think it's really the stage we're in right now is we really want community feedback. We want to know how people feel about this, and we want to know if there are champions out there for one pathway or another.
So how can they get... How will they let you know what you think?
They are absolutely welcome to contact us through the city's website. The Democracy Fund has their own page, or by email. allieheimer@gmail.com is a perfectly acceptable way to get in touch with us.
And you both have had experience running for office.
Yes.
Yeah.
Leslie, how did that affect the work you do here at Democracy Fund? What did you learn from that you brought to this job?
I think something that I learned from that was maybe I'm not my favorite choice of candidate, but I really feel strongly that every election should be contested meaningfully, and that we need to encourage people to stand up, go through that process, which is like not a fun process, and like try to represent their community. So I think something that the Democracy Fund does is it makes it like financially feasible to do that. But it also kind of levels the playing field between incumbents and non-incumbents and people who are just trying to get an idea out there, get the word out there, or just even have the conversation. So I think that that's like the real benefit of this program, at least from my perspective. And I know for other people, there's a lot of other good reasons for it, but
Well, I'm proud that we're the only city that has. Has anyone ever touched base with you? I heard Bridgeport of all places.
Bridgeport, Middletown, New
Is it
Britain.
happening?
It's hard. It's definitely difficult to figure out where the initial funding is going to come from. But if towns are able to solve that problem and get it off the ground, then I think there are very many towns.
Was our first election 2009?
First election was 2009.
And here we go, 2027. We're going to be going strong. Well, great work, folks.
Yeah.
We believe in democracy, and you
too.
folks are heroes of democracy.
Thank
So
you.
keep
Thank
the New
you.
Haven Democracy Fund going. So, folks, go to the Democracy Fund website that's on the city website and let them know if you think, A, we should have a seal of approval for other races in town or even fund other races in town. And we're going to be talking about that in 2026.
thank you.
And
Happy
thanks for talking about
Thanksgiving.
everything today. Allie Heimer, Leslie Heffel-McGurk from the Democracy Fund, and Harry Drost behind the controls. We're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic Experience performing I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free from the group CD, A Plea for Peace. This is Paul Bass inviting you to fly free with us all day, all night, and all Thanksgiving week long at WNHH, New Haven's home for community radio.